So what you're looking at right now is the Pixel Watch 4, or at least our first look at it via 3D renders. Let's dive into what the leaked renders are showing us, and there are some interesting little tidbits that you probably need to know. If you want more Pixel Watch goodness as we get closer to release, well then you know the drill, hit that subscribe button for all of the latest and greatest. Cheers. So now, when it comes to generational leaps, I have to say the Pixel Watch family hasn't exactly reinvented the wheel design-wise. What we're looking at is a familiar circular body with a nice curved display. I think it's a very standout design, and it's something that in some ways I'm pleased that Google is continuing with it. They might not be the slimmest smartwatches out there, but they've generally struck a decent balance between form and function, offering a comfortable fit for a wide range of users. And for many, the Pixel Watch has represented a welcome and stylish entry into that Wear OS ecosystem, finally offering a true Google designed experience on the platform, and that is something that we've wanted for years, up until the original one, and the second generation probably really made that major leap in terms of performance and stuff that we wanted. Hold up for a second though, because with these first glimpses of the Pixel Watch 4, and their courtesy of some 3D renders, they're hinting at a couple of notable changes, some changes that you probably weren't expecting. The initial front-on shot of the display and face, I don't think it screams massive differences, but it does look like the bezel might be a tad thinner, at least to my eye it does. The source is also saying that this thing is going to be a little bit chunkier, clocking in at 14.3mm. Now there could be many reasons why the Pixel Watch 4's chassis might be packing a bit more heft, but a bigger battery seems like, or at least the most likely culprit. Battery life has been a consistent point of discussion with basically every smartwatch in existence this time. I think a thicker chassis could provide the necessary volume to house a significantly larger battery cell, potentially addressing naturally one of those primary concerns of any smartwatch user out there, the need for more than a day's worth of power on a single charge. Don't get me wrong though, the Pixel Watch 3, specifically the 45mm, has been the best of the bunch for a while, at least in Google's efforts. It's a 2-day-ish wearable, at least in my experience, but I will say I'm not the ideal candidate to determine smartwatch battery longevity, as I'm not always that active whilst wearing a watch. I prefer to do my workouts without wearing any sort of jewellery. There is also another thing to consider though, as this increased thickness introduces the question of overall wearability, and this is something I'm concerned about personally, as I do think that the Pixel Watch 3 can protrude a little bit further than some other wearables. Does this mean the Pixel Watch 4 will sit comfortably on a variety of wrists like some other options out there? Will that added bulk feel cumbersome during the sleep tracking or intense workouts? I think these are crucial considerations that Google will need to address in the final design, and naturally we will get to see more of that, hopefully, as time progresses. Adding another layer to the size puzzle is the uncertainty surrounding whether Google will continue its trend of offering the Pixel Watch in multiple size options. We do expect it to be the case, but the Pixel Watch 2 still only came in that 41mm size, if we can get that correct, while the original Pixel Watch was just a single size as well. I'm wondering if the Pixel Watch 4 will break this pattern and just offer a larger variant only, perhaps just that 45mm option, which seems to be the most popular this time around, just to cater to those of us out there who want a larger, more prominent display. Without any comparative renders or concrete information, I think it's difficult to ascertain just how chunky though this measurement will translate into real-world wearability, as the slightly concave, is it concave? Whatever the shape is, it's like it sits slightly different to other wearables because it's almost more rounded in its chassis shape. So when we see these renders as well, when they're flipped over, you'll see that the Pixel Watch 4 has a sensor array that looks a little bit like it's had a bit of a makeover. At first glance, the sensors themselves appear visually similar to those found on the Pixel Watch 2 and 3. We're likely looking at the familiar suite of optical heart rate sensors, SpO2 monitoring capabilities, and potential skin temperature sensors. However, without a detailed breakdown of those internal specifications, it's impossible to definitively say whether any new or upgraded sensor tech has been incorporated, and we are hoping that Google can do so, as this tech does progress quite speedily. There is an interesting change here though, and that is the charging pins that we saw on the Pixel Watch 2 and 3. They at least look like they've vanished, and this looks like it could be a pretty significant shift, at least when Google did go to that pogo pin style system for charging. The absence of these pins on the Pixel Watch 4 renders does suggest a potential pivot to Google's charging strategy for the wearable lineup. The Pixel Watch series has more or less abstained from embracing conventional Qi wireless charging. In fact, there's not that many smartwatches out there that still offer it. It's a feature that is something that really does help sell wearables, I think. The lack of charging pins on the Pixel Watch 4 at least could finally signal Google's intention to adopt a proper contactless charging method. While the renders themselves don't explicitly showcase wireless charging coils or any other visual cues, the removal of those pins, at least on the renders themselves, strongly implies we could move in, or at least Google could be moving in that direction. The adoption of wireless charging, I think, could bring several benefits to the Pixel Watch 4. It could simplify the charging process, allowing you to potentially charge your Pixel Watch on any Qi-compatible charging pad, which is really convenient. What I'm thinking though is that this could open the door for reverse wireless charging capabilities, allowing you to just throw your watch on the back of your compatible smartphone and top up when you need to, basically without having a charger nearby. I think it's a feature that's increasingly common on the flagship smartphone market, so at least reverse wireless charging is, so it could foster a wider ecosystem of third-party charging accessories which are designed for the Pixel Watch, something that we've complained about in the past anyway. The accessory lineup is not necessarily perfect for the Pixel Watch period. It's also plausible that Google might be exploring different forms of pinless charging, which of course is something I really don't want them to do. I'd rather them just stick to that Qi standard. They could be developing their own proprietary contactless charging solution, which I don't think would be great for everyone. In any case, the disappearance of those charging pins does mark a significant change to the Pixel Watch's design, and it hints at a more, at least in some ways, convenient charging experience with this new version. Moving our attention to the side of this rendered Pixel Watch 4 though, we encounter another little bit curious design element surrounding the speaker grill, or what appears to be the speaker grill. It appears that Google has incorporated two small raised bumpers or protrusions on either side of the speaker opening. The exact purpose of these additions is currently shrouded in speculation, and we're going to speculate here for you now. Are these new physical buttons perhaps offering quick access to specific functions or applications? The placement on either side of the speaker seems somewhat unconventional for typical button placement, at least on a smartwatch. Alternatively, these could be some form of dampening feature, maybe similar to the rubber padding found around some of the proprietary watch band connectors. This could mean, or at least help reduce vibrations or improve the acoustic performance of the speaker, which is something that, well, let's be honest, it's not a great speaker on any wearable so far in the Android space. Now, a long stretch or a long possibility could be basically these bumpers are related to the integration of additional health sensors. For instance, maybe they could serve as contact points for other hardware like an ECG, a dedicated external one, or similar to how Samsung has this feature with its Galaxy Watch series requiring users to place a finger on a specific button, at least to complete the circuit. But that does work anyway on the Pixel Watch 3, so it's really kind of a strange one. And the placement on the left side of the watch might be less comfortable for us right-handed users if Google were to adopt a similar interaction method. It's just confusing all things round with this particular little change. But yeah, the true function of these speaker-adjacent bumpers remains a major mystery for now, but it's undoubtedly an interesting design choice that will hopefully be clarified the closer we get to launch, and maybe more as more leaks and news arrives. So, as with all renders, it tends to be a bit of a generic model, and if there's a placeholder colour, the black model here is probably not going to be the only colourway that Google will offer. Naturally, in the past, the company has offered its Pixel devices and the Pixel Watch in complementary colour variants, so we'll get a selection, or we're likely going to get a selection of different metal finishes, different band options, which will give you that degree of personalisation that you want. We do expect the Pixel Watch 4 to follow suit, as basically any Pixel Watch, offering a nice range of colour choices to appeal to different aesthetic preferences. In terms of the other news around the Pixel Watch 4, let's talk about potential launch timeline. I think this is pretty obvious from the outset. It's basically a given that we're going to see this next-gen wearable at Made by Google 2025. It's probably going to be after the Pixel 10 has been unveiled on stage, as it was last year with the Pixel Watch 3. To be honest, it's going to take something special to make me personally switch away from the OnePlus Watch 3. I do think that is still the best Wear OS watch on the market right now, at least in my opinion. I know there are some other options from Samsung and whatnot, but I want to know what you think. Do you think that the Pixel Watch 4 can really elevate the experience? I do. One of my biggest requests, realistically, is what Google is going to do with the software update plan. I would love to see them offer extended software support, as that's one of the biggest problem areas for me with really recommending the Pixel Watch. You get 3 years. Would like to see that at least 5. That would be a really nice touch, especially as it means that they're properly supporting their first-party Wear OS watch. Let me know though what you think. That's my complaints aside, obviously. Let me know what you think down in the comment sections below. And yeah, hopefully this has given you an idea of what to expect with the Pixel Watch 4. Getting our first look. Looks the same, but yeah, looks can be deceiving. And I'll speak to you later.